Oh, we got a show lined up for you tonight. We've got a very good friend of ours, a man by the name of Ron Coden. Why don't we bring him out? Ron, come on up here. Welcome.
Really nice. I've sung that song myself, and it didn't sound like that.
Oh, Ron, you're too kind.
Oh, sounds good.
Welcome, Ron.
Thank you.
We're glad you could make it tonight.
So am I.
Yeah. We've got so many questions to ask you. I'll tell you what, being a fan of yours,
Yes.
a big fan of yours, we wanted to ask you about your hot fudge days.
Well, I refuse to answer.
Okay, what sign are you? I knew it was going to...
People don't realize that I was on that show because I'm always in different costumes. I was Professor Emotion.
Name that feeling. Little girl and little boys out there.
That was with I had little. It was like it was a show based something like Sesame Street, only it was dealing with emotions instead of the fundamentals that Sesame Street deals with. So I was a Professor Emotion running a game. Name that feeling. We would describe a feeling, and a puppet would try to answer it. And like Perry Mason always answered it. And then I was Detective Tomato, which was well, it was an imitation of Peter Falk doing Columbo.
Can you do Peter Falk for us?
Well, you see, that's a story. See, when this came out, this was about 7 and 8 years ago. I never saw Columbo because I was lucky enough to be working that night. And so the producer says, well, he talks a little bit like this. So actually, I was doing an imitation of the producer doing an imitation of Columbo. And people would say, that's a lousy Columbo. I said, yeah, but it's a great imitation of the producer doing an imitation. So, and then I was Mr. Nasty, which I was in a cave. And Mr. Nasty was sort of a psychopath. And he was fun to do. And
they cast you well in there.
Yes. I fell right into that. That was one take, and they would say, just let Ron do what he wants to do, and we'll cut it after 5 minutes. And then there was Hiram Kneepad, which was an English gentleman, and different characters. It was a lot of fun.
Now, is that in still syndication today?
In some areas, yeah.
Was that a national show?
It was a nationally syndicated show. It was, over 100 markets around the country. And it was produced right here in Detroit. And it was, I thought, written and produced.
Extreme. I was just going to ask you, who wrote some of the ideas you came up with and the remedies to problems?
Well, I wasn't. No. The producer and the writer was Barry Hurd. And another producer was Bob Elnicki, who also worked the puppets and was in charge of the puppets. And then a guy by the name of Bob Lipson directed it, which was... and there was Larry Santos, who did all the music.
Right.
And, of course, he does 8 million commercials now.
Right.
And Yolanda Williams was the girl that was on the show. The other live person. Everybody else was a hand. Although we didn't think of them as that,
It was an amazing show.
It was.
Is that still in Detroit now?
I think so. I think at 6:30 in the morning.
Because we work Saturday night too, and it's kind of hard to get up to watch,
Yeah, well, you need a child like that.
Little baby and the baby's crying there. I hope Ron was a recently father.
Yes.
What's the name of the baby?
Casey.
Casey.
And I hold her up to the TV and I say, look, aren't you impressed? And she says, milk. I want milk. That's where it is.
Well, now let's ask one more question here.
Okay.
Or let me put it this way. What would you consider yourself? A folk comedian? A comedian folk? Did you start off strictly folk at one time? Some tells me you're going to say you were the class clown. Is that true?
Yeah, I was in grade school. Then I went to Oak Park High, and I went from president of the Davy Crockett fan club to the 7th grade, where everybody was thinking about sex. So I became very introverted for the 7th and 8th grade, and then I became funny again in the 9th grade. But I started when folk music was very timely music and very topical songs, and I did a lot of protest songs. But I would still do funny stuff in between. I couldn't get away from that. And now it's changed. I do mostly comedy now, but I enjoy doing ballads and stuff like that. When I hear something like that, it's always nice. So I'd like to do that.
Well, as you know, when you've got a great writer like Michael Smith...
Michael Smith is a great writer, yes.
Unbelievable.
Yes, he is.
I tell you. Tell us a little bit about your friendship or your affiliation with Ron Santos.
With Ron, wait, you mean Larry Santos?
I'm sorry, Larry Santos. I'm sorry.
Larry was the musical director of Hot Fudge, and when I was a singer, and they booked me on this as just an actor, and I enjoyed that because I'd never really gotten a chance to act that much. So Larry was doing all the music, and I never saw anybody being able to. He writes so fast. I mean, they give him an idea, and he writes it just like that. And he does the commercials that he does now. A lot of them he writes, and I did he had a big hit not too long ago. Well, it was a long time ago. It was 5 years ago. I forget.
Wasn't Candy Girl, was it?
No, that was his first. That was his first one. But we did a tour together, and I was his opening act.
Oh wow!
I was his opening act for a lot of big people. It's fun to be an opening act. Someday you should do that.
Yes, Ron, we're opening for you.
So we are.
Speaking of opening,
yes.
I was just going to say, speaking of opening, we're going to take a short break right now. We're going to get Ron up here to do whatever he wants to do, any way he wants to do it, funny or straight. And we're going to be back in a few minutes. Thank you.